Good morning and welcome to all of you today. I thought I would take some time to introduce myself and introduce the businesses that I am lucky enough to be at the helm of after a few years of creating them. So if I separate out into, I guess, three at the moment, but with the possibility of a fourth business that would form part of, I guess, the Cribben group of companies. So 13 years ago, I started a short-term rental management business called Highlands Holidays. And it was just based in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. I had been, which is about an hour and a half south of Sydney, towards Canberra. And I had been a full real estate agent. So my business had been selling properties and we'd also rented standard residential properties, so permanent tenants. And then a lady came into our office in Bowral and said to us, look, I'd like to buy a property, but I want to stay in it about one weekend in a month. Could you help me? And I looked at Jane, who fortunately after 13 years still is my right-hand girl. And I looked at her and I thought, actually, can we do that between Jane and I? And instantly I answered this lady, and her name was Evian Del Fabro, and her property name was Highcroft. And we went on to manage that property for 10 years. So now, we've obviously grown much bigger. So it started 13 years ago. We still were doing sales. We still had permanent tenants. And then we started the short-term rentals. We grew that to be about 10 or 12 properties. And then I decided that I was probably better suited to hospitality and the hospitality industry than I was to real estate. So I sold my real estate business and my permanent rent role to a local company called Highlands Property. And that was 12 years ago, or coming up for 13, well, actually it probably is 13 years ago. No, it'd be 12 years ago. And the rest is history. So we now have migrated and purchased rental roles of short-term rentals in other areas within New South Wales. So we started with the Shoalhaven area, and we've had an office in Culburra for coming up to 9 years. Or it is 9 years, I think, this week or last week. We have an office in Kiama, and we've been there for around 6 years. And so Culburra is about an hour and a half from Bowral towards the coast and south. And Kiama is about an hour from Bowral directly east towards the coast. So those two areas and the whole of the south coast of New South Wales, from Sydney south, we have properties probably about 2 to 3 hours, maybe even longer, 3 to 4 hours drive south of Sydney. And we intend to grow that area significantly. The further you get away from Sydney, the less bookings you tend to get on weekends, but people go for school holidays further down the south coast because it's too far to drive on a Friday night and stay for the weekend and go home ready for work on Monday. So the Southern Highlands or Bowral and Kiama and Greater Wollongong, we get quite a lot of weekend visitors. Culburra and the Shoalhaven, Kalala, Currarong, Ulladulla, Jarvis Bay. Yes, some people still do make that journey for a weekend, but maybe that's 3 nights. So they go Thursday to Monday, or they go Friday to Thursday to Sunday, or Friday to Monday. And then 18 months ago, we purchased a rent roll in Port Stephens, which took us north of Sydney, and it's approximately 2 hours and a bit north of Sydney, and we have a small rent roll that we'd like to build there. So holiday rental specialists over the last 12 years has looked after approximately 1,200 properties for property investors. Obviously, people sell, they change and decide to put in a permanent tenant, or they move into the properties themselves. So we've looked after 1,200 properties. In that time, we've taken nearly 65,000 bookings. So now, obviously, we were smaller 12 years ago, but now we holiday rental specialists target is 10,000 bookings a year. And about our average guest numbers is between sort of 6 and 8 per property per stay. So 6 or 8 people will stay together in a short-term rental on average for us. So we have some properties that sleep 2, and we have other properties that sleep 22 or 24 or 26. They vary in quality from basic or and just simple and clean, right up to uber luxury where you can hire a chef and have someone cook meals for you. So and a housekeeper that'll do all the tidying up and cleaning for you. And we're managing everything in between. So if you say that on average 8 people stay at each property, then each year we would look after 80,000 guests. So it's a big operation. And over those 12 years, we have looked after or helped more than 500,000 people have beautiful and make beautiful memories while they're on holidays or working for a short term in a different location. We've also paid our owners nearly $100 million in rent over those 12 years. So it's a big operation, and we're hoping to continue to build holiday rental specialists. Currently, we have 329 properties under management, and we'd like over the next 2 years to extend that to 500 properties. And also to work with the owners and investors of those properties to make their properties the best they can possibly be so they can get more bookings themselves. So it's not just about growing the portfolio, it's about ensuring that the properties themselves are the best that they can be so they get more bookings and more income. And we charge a percentage of the money that the owner receives from the guest. So the more bookings we have, the more money we earn. So the more properties we have, the more bookings we have, the more money we earn. And in order to pull that together, it takes more than a village. So we have approximately 20 team members on the ground in Australia, not all of them in the areas that we operate in. We've got a few people that are away because their skill set fitted with what they need and they work remotely or from home, but still in Australia. And then we have approximately 15 offshore team members, some in the Philippines and some in Malaysia. So, and those team members help us to manage the guests and their experience, manage the owner and their experience, manage the money and how we deal with it, because we collect the money on behalf of the owner from the guest or from Airbnb. Then we pay all the bills that need to be paid, and then we give the owner the money at the end of each month. And that's quite a process in itself. We are required to hold a trust account, which means the government audits the money that goes in and out of that account, because we're holding money on behalf of somebody else. It's not our money until we pay ourselves our management fees or our booking fees. And at some stage, I'm sure all of you will begin to understand how we actually charge. And it's not just the owner. We charge the owner some things, but we also charge the guest in order to offer them a level of service that we expect. So then obviously our onshore team and our offshore team is extended into housekeepers, linen supply, amenities supply, grounds people, gardeners, lawn mowers, service, plumbers, electricians, etc. So all in all, I would say there's more than 100 people who get together to make these holidays special for guests. So it's a pretty big operation, and one that I'm very focused on growing and scaling with the right people in the right jobs, doing the right thing at the right time. Now, that doesn't always happen, and it's the longevity of our team members is an important part of that, because it's very complicated, as you would understand, with all those moving parts. They all have to work together to make it happen, and then we have to market it to everybody, and for guests and for owners. So obviously we have a marketing team who get involved in that as well, and we are focused on growing it and as I said, scaling it, but we've got some work to do on before we can take the next step as far as growth is concerned, because businesses get to a certain point where you need to go back and revisit all the processes and how you do everything to make sure people aren't doubling up on what they're doing, to make sure people have a checklist and a process to follow the bigger that we get. So that's holiday rental specialists. It's the biggest part of our group of companies, and it probably provides most of us with our income at this moment in time, whilst I'm hoping to set up the new businesses that I'm going to share with you now. So over the last perhaps 12 months, over the 12 years, I've recognised that as an industry, we are fairly fledgling the short-term rental industry.